Hello, and welcome to the third edition of the SimDemocracy pod. Today's episode was originally going to be called Episode 3, Revenge of the Rig. But then with so much happening with civil cases and restraining orders, that we decided to change it to Revenge of the COS. Then we thought, get that. We don't even know what to call it. There's so much stuff happening, we decided to just leave it as Episode 3, Revenge of the Blank. Appearing on today's episode, we have our featured Senator series as always, and we have the speaker. We have Keijo. They've decided to come on and speak to the podcast, and we will go into the depth of their first ever ship and more. We also have on Match, who has been kind enough to come on and talk about the recent court case going up against him and the president, which was literally within 2 minutes of them being elected. They tried to delete the vacant the chief of staff role. And finally, to round off the podcast, we re-invited the Attorney General, as there has been some changes in the Wolf trial. The pre-trial has happened since the last podcast, so he's come on to talk about that. And then some other general judiciary stuff, as well as integration. The judiciary can be improved with the DOI. So make sure you stay tuned in to hear all of that. And we have Match with us today. He's going to be discussing a wide variety of things. First of all, congratulations on becoming VP.
Why, thank you.
You had an impressive campaign with Stalin. One could say that there wasn't much competition. I mean, the most popular person besides Stalin was a new member. What would you say about that?
Well, it's funny because I'm somewhat... The issue with it is that if he's a cool person, I mean, I understand why people are doing it. It's kind of a joke, something like that. But I am always skeptical of new members just because I deal with a lot of raiders and stuff. But the funny thing is when I first joined, I ran for president and got second place. I was 3 days old and I came in second and lost in the runoff. So
it's not unheard of.
No, it's not unheard of at all. It's almost kind of funny to me that it happened to him. The same thing that happened to me.
I wasn't around for the start of it. Does he know that everybody was memeing with him?
Yeah, he did know. He did know. I think Half Cat might have been the one to start it. I think it's just because everyone looked at his CFC and it said something like, "I'm a new member here. I'm just gonna run," or something like that. So everyone started memeing that, and it just caught on. I thought it was pretty cool and funny.
It was good. I'm happy to have seen it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure he was pretty happy too.
Yeah, well, if anything, it's more likely to keep one person here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, you recently took upon the role of the vice president, but the last 2 weeks you were exclusively the deputy attorney general and the general himself.
Yes.
You've had to give up the general role, and it looks like it's going to go to Dover. Would there be any advice that you would give to Dover?
The only thing I can say to Dover is that the military has changed tremendously since the last time you were general. As you know, when Dover was general, that was with high command, and basically the military was what the SDBI is, or the DLE is today. Currently, the military does, I'll put this bluntly, absolutely nothing. The SimDemocracy Military Act, I read this, in peacetime we're supposed to help with I believe it is the Department of Integration, the Department of Expansion, but...
That is correct.
No one really... They can help, but again, you really don't do much as general. I don't know. I mean, if we go to war, then obviously the general has something to do, but how often do we go to war, really?
Exactly. So, would you say that we would need to go to war more to warrant a position called general?
I am adamantly against doing meme wars. Personally, I feel like it's basically just...
Or ex-general, everybody. Or ex-general.
Oh, yeah. Two-time ex-general. Two-time.
Okay, sorry. Go on with what you were saying.
I personally am against meme wars because I feel they are brigading, and if they ask us to stop and we don't stop, or if we don't see them asking for us to stop, it can definitely get us in a lot of trouble for brigading.
What would you say about having a neutral territory where both subreddits fight on there, like a sim no man's land, if you will?
That's not a bad idea. I think that can work out pretty well. It's just,
It solves
again,
the brigading issue.
Yeah, it does. It's just, again, I don't know. I just kind of see meme wars as, I don't think they're as beneficial as people make them out to be.
I don't see. I have to agree with you that I don't see any benefit to it outside of expansion and integration.
Yeah.
For me, that's the only reason, and it's fun. People like to make shit post memes.
Oh yeah, sure. Like Ivy, you can make a meme in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I remember when he first joined, and everybody was amazed.
I remember that too.
Yeah. Okay, so another role that you still actually have that I noticed in the server is the Deputy Attorney General.
That's
You're not
correct.
required to give up that position as VP?
So I looked over Nira, and I could find literally nothing what the requirements were for DAG.
Okay.
So I don't believe I have to give it up. Which the funny thing is that Owl is my boss as DAG, but I'm Owl's boss as the vice president, so I'm quite literally my own boss.
Oh.
So that's fun.
It's a brain fuck, and no wonder people complain that this place is too confusing.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so you're not looking to give up that position for the next 2 weeks?
No, I don't think I will give up that position. I think I'm doing a pretty good job, but it's probably just me tooting my own horn.
To be honest, things have been moving in the judiciary recently. We saw a lot of cases. That was a nice little switchover. So, talking about cases in the judiciary, immediately after you guys became presidents and vice presidents,
yes,
you did quickly delete a role. Would have to say that the way that you guys did delete that role was a little bit too much. Could have been done a little bit differently.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But a court case was the result. Well, not anymore, but there was a court case.
A civil lawsuit filed against Stalin and I.
Under the grounds of defamation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, without causing any shit, we're not throwing anything, because of course we knew what happened last night. With me getting dragged into one as well.
Yeah.
Would you say that he felt warranted? Like, how could he be justified in bringing forward that civil suit?
You see, I feel like this might have just been miscommunication, because I was preparing for this case, obviously, because I found it to be a bit ridiculous, but I have screenshots of before the day Sunday, which was the election day, at like 12 p.m. or like noon. I said, by the way, if we win, I'm going to delete the chief of staff role.
So you even spoke about it before the election results.
We've been playing this for like ever since Stalin and I decided to run. We're like, yeah, we're going to execute this role because we didn't think it was a necessary position. I have screenshots to back that up. Specifically the role. Yes, I even said in that message the role. And if you notice that when I pinged the role, I said that I didn't. Well, the funny thing is, when I pinged the role, no one had it because Jacob had resigned previously before that. So it was an empty role. No one had that role. So me saying that they committed crimes was completely not true because no one had the role. I was talking to the Discord role. Yeah. I just think it was miscommunication. So Jacob resigned. They said, something about, I don't want to work for a communist. I'm assuming that was probably a joke because, Stalin's profile picture is Stalin. So they resigned from the chief of staff position. So when I pinged the role saying that you have committed crimes against SimDemocracy, you've been marked for termination, I think they took that as me being mad that they resigned, which I'm going to be straight up honest. I think even if Jacob had stayed, we would have fired them. Not anything against Jacob, just because we don't think the role is necessary.
Well, yeah, it's an unlegislated role.
Yeah, it was completely legal for us to do that.
Of course, just in the same sense, it was completely legal for Johns to request that I make the role.
Oh yeah, of course. I could have you request a role just literally called E, and like it would be legal. It would be probably stupid.
Stalin would have to request it. If you came to me to request a role called E, I'll tell you where to shove
it. That's true.
Okay. However, one can understand how he would feel after coming out of the Meat Feet Nova court case, civil case, with that, how he handled that proceedings. And then prior to that Halfcat situation, could feel that he felt pressured and pushed against the community, as if there was a backlash against him, which could eventually lead to this whole, I'm being targeted by the president.
Yeah.
In that sense, would you say that he would feel that he could be justified?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they might feel that the community was somewhat against them. The court case, we as SimDem, we like to, I guess, pick fun at each other quite a lot. Like, if you notice how Stalin and I talk to each other, I constantly insult Stalin because him and I joke around like that because we have a good relationship. So I feel like it's hard for new members sometimes when they join. When we see that, they might take it a bit personally, and I feel like we may have gone a bit too far with the way they handled the Nova pretrial and stuff like that. And the Half-Cat situation that was just messy on all parties, I feel like. So I can definitely understand why they could have felt like they were being targeted. But I also, the issue is that even they said that they are from model U.S. government, they're used to that system. So seeing them act like this is model U.S. gov, kind of, I feel like it rubs a lot of our members the wrong way. So I feel like that also created some distance between them and
we saw that last night. We saw that exactly happen within the court. There's a different court case for those who aren't in the server. Last night, the former chief of staff tried to take the podcast, tried to put a restraining order on the podcast because he knew what we were going to be talking about after he was invited. Sorry, they were invited onto the show to discuss their sides. So that led to a different motion court case about a restraining order last night. In that specific case, that's what we're talking about now, was the language of U.S. law and British law was brought into it. Now you can feel that he's maybe I don't know how model U.S. government works, but maybe they have judiciary cases over there.
So I think maybe it was Ivy that told me this. I don't know. Someone told me that they have a court system. You can actually use U.S. court cases in model U.S. Gov to argue your cases. So I believe that is why they were doing that.
What went wrong is this is not beauty of SimDemocracy. Is it its own thing? If we wanted to be something else, then we would have been called model something government.
Yeah.
Last night, this Jacob bought U.S. law and British law to try and sway the argument in their favor for a preemptive restraining order. Would you say that would have been justified as well? Honestly,
the issue.
We didn't talk in the courtroom. I mean, we spoke shit outside. Inside, Ivy was the lawyer for us. Now, so we didn't really say anything about our opinions.
Yeah.
Is it justified?
I don't feel like the restraining order is justified just because of how our laws function. If you look at the Restraining Order Act, I believe, I don't have the exact wording, but it says, if they have been targeted and harassed in messages. The issue with that is that, one, this podcast we're on is not under SimDem jurisdiction, so we could say quite literally anything. Two is that the messages hadn't happened already. They were just assuming that we would defame them, which is, one, that's not how law really works. You can't just assume someone's going to commit a crime. That's just not how court systems work. So I just felt like the restraining order was a bit far-fetched. Again, I'm not trying to diss Jacob at all. I'm just saying that the idea of filing that restraining order is a bit far-fetched. And, yeah.
As we can all see as well, we are some way into this interview and no one's defamed anybody. No one's insulted or harassed or anything like that. So it's already clearly not what it was not necessary. Would you say the language of using US law and British law justified?
I do not think it was at all. I don't. It's funny because I am the DAG, Deputy Attorney General, but
this is why I'm asking.
I'm still. Last time I was in the court system was quite a while ago when I was a judge, and it's been a while. We have we have new court procedures and stuff, and I've missed a couple of cases. I've heard from Ivy that maybe it was Ivy, I don't know, but apparently our Supreme Court used a real life court example in one of the rulings, or at least mentioned it. But again, I don't think our laws allow for us to use any real life court system. The issue is that our court system may be modeled after, the Western court systems or whatever that, but like it is still our court system and unique to us. So bringing in real life courts with their own laws and that don't match our laws is kind of far fetched because we're two separate entities. That's like comparing an apple to a banana. It's not the same.
I get what you mean. I get your point. Also, there would be clashes with how one ruling would affect directly our law.
Yeah.
That looks like that's all we've got time for. Thank you for coming on today. Is there anything that you can? Oh, anytime. Just one final thing before you do go. Is there anything that's happening in the next 2 weeks that you can share with us?
So Stalin and I, we have a lot of events planned. Stalin campaigned really hard on pushing for community events, which we are planning right now. I believe today he has mentioned a SimDem Kahoot for like SimDem history, which would be really cool. So we have a lot of community events planned for. Currently, for other stuff, I am in the midst of working on the mock trials, which we've had before. I actually have a case already set up, and I'm gonna probably release it tomorrow. Yeah, we have quite a lot of stuff planned in the future, so it should be an interesting 2 weeks.
You're hitting the ground running already.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. Well, thank you again, and we hope to invite you on again soon.
Thank you.
And moving over to our featured senator series, this week we invite Keijo on, and he's currently the Speaker of the Senate. Welcome to the podcast, Keijo.
Thank you for having me on, good sir.
Congratulations on the election. It's your first time as Speaker, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's really nice
perfect.
actually being that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the role? Because this is your first time in there. A lot of people who understand the Senate have already have been PM before, but not necessarily Speaker. What's the role like for you?
Well, what it's like for me is it's essentially trying to organize the votes, because that's the primary job of the Speaker, is to put up votes, but I haven't been able to do the other half of the stuff I wanted to do since I've been caught up in schoolwork, so I'm hoping this next week I can start working on some projects and maybe bills that can come together.
Okay. Can you maybe give us a little idea of what these projects will be?
Well, so what I'm trying to think of various ideas. So I want to do some debates on topics. There hasn't been anything terribly controversial, though, that I feel would warrant a debate. The second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to try to put together a session where we could work on bills, because I know that individually, and I know this is going to be weird to say, that I'm not great at writing bills, but I think if we get people together, that we can all, pitch in and hopefully make a pretty good bill on various topics.
That's interesting you say that about senators pitching in. The DOI has recently revived, and they took control of the bill makers of SimDemocracy, and they're hoping to make that the stepping stone into the legislative branch. Would you say that senators need to be more involved in the bill makers of SimDemocracy, and maybe that would help?
Well, I think it would help, but it's also mainly an experience thing. Like, I'm not great at writing bills, but that's just simply because I haven't made many bills. So I think if senators had more experience with that through an organization like Bill Makers of SimDemocracy, then they would be able to write bills in a more proficient manner.
Perfect. That's something that the DOI is currently looking at, so good timing.
Hope it works.
Sorry, what was that?
Hope it works out.
Yeah, me too. So what are your goals as Speaker? You just mentioned the debate project, but is there anything else you have on the table?
Well, again, it's that. It's putting up the votes. I really want to do the stuff that I've just mentioned to you, and I want to hopefully get my schedule cleared for next week. That's the main stuff I want to focus on as Speaker, and those are the main ideas I have. So there's not much else beyond that, I would say.
Fair enough. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you ran... Oh, quiet again. I didn't hear that. Can you repeat?
Are you good there? You just cut out for a second.
Sorry. So, correct me if I'm mistaken, but you ran as an IRA member for Senate. Is that correct?
Yes, I did, good sir.
Yeah, you did. So does that mean that the IRA party is now taking the step from being a community party and is now a political party?
Well, no, that doesn't mean that. It's still a community party, regardless of that. It's just that we've actually managed to get the speakership, but it's not like that necessarily means that I would be a bad senator or speaker, because again, I think I've been doing my duties as necessary, and I don't think it makes the IRA anything more than a community party.
Okay, it's interesting that you say that because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there is a law that states that community parties aren't allowed to be. You're not allowed to run within a community party office.
I would have to look into that, and I wouldn't know. But I thought I ran on PLM, if I'm mistaken, if that's a problem, because I don't think I
Not
actually
necessarily
ran
a
on
problem. I
IRA.
just want to pick
Yeah.
at you to get some questions answered. But so we're not going to see the IRA take this next step and become a political force within SimDemocracy.
No.
All right.
No, the IRA is not becoming a serious thing. It's still a community party.
I'm pretty sure Panzer will be upset about that. And then
Yeah, he
moving
will.
on, going on then to the maybe future of the Senates and what's going on right now is that CPSU is having a massive growth recently in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
more.
that it's interesting to see, and again, you're seeing this a lot. It's kind of like we're in the cycle where, some of the older parties are dying. Like, I hate to say it, but like the progressives' fun is pretty much gone, I would say, at this point. And
The
in your
election
place,
rigging is what killed it.
yeah, and then in their place, you're seeing the newer parties, which are the CPSU, and then of course the party which I represent, PLM.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, so you're saying that we're currently going into a new evolution, a new stage of SimDemocracy. Of course, we had the SPQR and the CSP, which is still around, but they sort of died, and then Fun and PP rose from there. You're saying now that PP and Fun is now in their cycle of death, and PLM, CPSU with the new forces?
I would say so, but that's just I think that's just because, in SimDem there's almost, you could say, there's a cycle to this. No party will ever remain alive forever. Eventually your party will die and fall into either irrelevancy or disband. That's just the truth of it.
That is the truth, to be honest. It's as much as it hurts sometimes if you're a party leader. I know that there's a few people that take it quite personally, but yeah. Everything dies at the end of the day. Now, there's one thing that I really wanted to get to talking to you about, and that is the Club Penguin drama.
Yes,
So,
that.
in this election, not obviously not the presidential election that's happening as we speak, but the senatorial election that happened last weekend. Following the election, a user came out and started saying that he rigged the election, and that you were one of the people that he helped along the way. Do you have anything? Now, the podcast, of course, is not accusing of anybody who yes or no. Do you have anything to say at this point? Because I believe it was Diego that responded, but I haven't heard anything from you yet.
Well, again, I don't really know who Club Penguin is. Obviously, I'm familiar with that and the stuff that's going on surrounding that because I'm the PM. I have the access to that. But it's being looked into, and beyond that, I don't think I can say much. On my end, though, I haven't heard from him at all. He hasn't tried to DM me on Reddit or Discord or whatever platform he's a part of, and anything I've done in the Senate is completely independent of him or any influence he might have.
So we can say on the record that prior to the election, you and Club Penguin did not communicate or collude in any fashion.
I don't know who the hell he is, to be perfectly honest.
No, okay. Perfect. We just wanted to get a clear answer because with the previous rigging attempt with Wolf, people said clear answers, then people took back their answers, and right now we need some stability. And thank you for your response on that. And it's good to as well.
Sorry, you cut out again. Apologies.
Oh, I was just talking about how right now we need more stability and with all this election rigging, nobody really trusts anybody at the moment. And it's good that we got some solid statements from the two people that were involved.
Yeah.
Now, last question before we have to move on to our next segment. Where is SimDem heading?
I mean, I certainly hope it continues to go forward in the manner it is right now, because I think we're in an okay state. It certainly could be a hell of a lot worse. It's not great, but it's could be worse, and I really hope it gets better. And I'm not sure what direction it's going to take, because I mean, I think around like when I joined, I didn't expect SimDem to still be here, and we're almost going into summer at this point.
Yeah.
I really didn't expect it, so I don't know.
That's good to hear. Then what is the weakest area of SimDem? Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Which area needs the most attention as to survive?
Well, I think the obvious answer is election security. We need a way to, actually be able to first off detect the election rigging and stop it. But then also, I think it needs to be anything we do in that area needs to be try to balance the fact that if you ruin one of the cornerstones of democracy is the fact that you are able to vote anonymously. Again, I'm not sure how you balance that in a sense, but it needs to be there, and that needs to be taken into account, because people, I think, will vote and score people a lot higher and will be a bit nicer, shall I say, with voting if they know that people are going to be looking over their vote, and that's not great.
Oh, fair enough. I do know that there is a think tank, if you will, currently looking into this, the ways to fix this and ways to take the next steps. Interesting to see what happens over the coming weeks. It does feel like every election there is a rig claim at the moment, which is obviously not so good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, Keijo. Good luck on the next week as speaker. I believe that you've done a good job so far. I've been watching you closely with the Senate votes, and every day there is multiple going up. So keep up the good work, man.
I do then. Thank you.
Oh, you deserve it. And we'll hopefully have you on the podcast one day soon.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Thank you very much. And in a surprise twist, we get to invite the Attorney General back onto the podcast. Welcome back, Alan.
Thank you.
So why we've invited you on today is to discuss the restraining order motions, because it's a new thing that's come. Well, it's not new, but we haven't really seen it being used before. And also the ongoing case with Wolf, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, firstly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been about a week since we had you here last.
Yeah.
How's the last week been in SimDemocracy?
Excuse me. What was the question?
How's the last week been on SimDem for you as AG?
It's been kind of stressful with the Wolf case, and me not being able to attend at the same time as him, because it would be 4 a.m. for me. So I sent in a match, and then he made his entire pre-trial into a 2-hour long thing, and then match got kind of mad at me, and then I took over, and then Wolf was like, no.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, but
it's difficult when you have somebody who is alone on the other end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The time zones make it a bit hard, but we'll just have to figure it out.
One could say that this is actually an advocating for an increase in member count. You can get more people from Asia and Australia, then this wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get more prosecutors, because at the moment there are 3 or 4 prosecutors. I don't know if Saj is back. If not, there's 3 prosecutors in the entire server at the moment.
How many do you need to have?
I don't think we need to have any, as far as I know. But we should have like
there's a minimum requirement of 5 judges. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and 3 Supreme Court. No, wait, not Supreme Court justices, but
Just interesting that there's a minimum requirement for judges, but not for attorneys.
Yeah, but it's kind of I suppose it's kind of different. Yeah, we're having some troubles with problems with manpower at the moment, but I hope to fix them soon.
Perfect. Maybe you should contact the Department of Advertising to advertise judiciary branch. Maybe that
It's
might
not a
help.
bad idea. I think I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
While we're on the topic of Wolf, the court case is still impending. We haven't had the full-on trial. We have had the pre-trial, as you mentioned, which was 2 hours. But how did that go?
Um,
The eyes of the government.
analyzing it, well, it went okay, but Wolf got a lot of good arguments in, and Match being a bit unprepared because I threw him into it last minute. It created some issues, but I think it's going to be fine. Of course, I personally want to win it, but yeah.
Of course. We have a few lurkers listening, hopefully. You maybe just give a 10-second summary on what happened.
Well, Wolf allegedly got a bunch of people, high-ranking SimDem people together and rigged an election with like 15 alts. And then
I kind of meant the pre-trial.
Oh, and the pre-trial.
The 10 seconds is not long enough for that.
Yeah, that's. I was like, well, Wolf wanted the case thrown out, and then he threw a bunch of arguments at it, and then Match was kind of unprepared, so he didn't really make any answers. But creating the judge didn't allow the case to go to trial either way.
I was just about to say, an announcement was made by Creating King, a well-known judge here in SimDemocracy. That's the court case will go to trial regardless because it's in the interest of the public to see it through.
Yes.
Which is a great thing to see on SimDemocracy. We have the spirit of the law ahead of the letter of the law.
Yes.
Been a big debate about that recently. Now, and as AG, what's your personal view on that?
I think, well, obviously it's important to have the spirit of the law in it, but I think a lot of our laws are not written well enough, so it creates some issues with the interpretation of the spirit. Like when I was still judge and I was acting Supreme Court Justice with we had that same issue that the spirit was something, but it was very clearly what was written that the judiciary had to adjudicate any conflict, meaning all.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to interpret it in their way, even though I personally didn't want that interpretation because it created a lot of issues.
Yeah, and I do remember a case a while ago. Now this is going back. Wolf, I can't remember what the bill was, but Wolf found a grammatical error, and it literally was just a comma. And that comma meant that the entirety, that and several other bills were repealed.
Yeah, that
kickstarted a debate on, well, it's the letter of the law, but it's it's the spirit of the article, but it's written in the wrong way.
Yeah, but it's very hard to interpret Barrett when the letter says something very specific. So I think it's really important before we actually accept acts, we actually look at how it's written and how it can affect further, further conflict and further.
Would you say though a large amount of these issues lie with the Senate? At the end of the day, they're the ones that are supposed to be reading the bills before they get voted on.
I would say yes. I haven't looked at this Senate too much, but generally, there's been a lot of bills that have gone too fast through the Senate without anyone really looking at it. Like people think, oh, that's a good idea, and then they implement it. Like the last Restraining Order Act was completely unconstitutional, and since no one looked at it, it just kind of flew through, and we ended up having a problem. So I think sometimes maybe acts or bills fly through fast through the Senate.
Yeah, we also had a case like that very recently. efficient at managing to get the Secretary of Elections seated instead of the Secretary of Foreign Affairs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, would you be agree? Would you be? Sorry, let me rephrase the entire sentence. Would you be with? Oh my God! Would you agree that a Department of Integration initiative that will help new users step into the Senate through reading and writing legislation? Now, would that be useful for the judiciary?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, I personally want more people to the judiciary instead of to the Senate. But
No, this is the stepping stone to the Senate. We'll be teaching people how to read and write bills, which would be for the Senate.
yeah, but I think that's really important too. To actually, right? Like, I don't say that the bills we have today are bad, but a lot of them are poorly formulated, and I think it's really important, just get it right, because or else we can have a lot of issues at later times.
Yeah. Now, the reason I'm asking this is because, as we all know, that I'm into the Department of Integration, and then recently there is the new members club. So there is one side we're looking at the Senate, and of course we're looking at the judiciary by increasing the amount of mock trials, which we are now seeing with Stalin organizing one this week. Would you say that mock trials is enough to prepare somebody for the judiciary branch, or is there more initiatives and more education needed before somebody can be stepping into the branch as a certified attorney?
Well, the bar exam isn't that hard, so I would say that entering as a certified attorney, if you attend the mock trial and you do that properly, you're more than qualified to be a certified attorney. But I
have
think
to say, I took the bar exam 3 times, I believe, and all 3 times I passed. I would,
Yeah.
I would not. I'm a certified attorney, but no one should hire me.
Yeah.
Should there more other than mock trials? What could you say?
Well, generally we just have to get people. We should have I guess what would be really good is to have a more simplified versions of laws as a stepping stone, because I remember when I was a new user and I entered SimDem, looking at the National Archives, I got kind of terrified because there was so much laws and so much difficult wording that they were just kind of choking on it. So I think that maybe a simplified version of the law could be a
Like
good
another
stepping
code of
stone.
laws?
Yeah,
Another-
like a legal code but simplified. Could be
That's
good for
interesting. That could be something that
users.
we could look at for the new user guide.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll steal that idea. Look into that.
Thieves.
Well, that brings our time to a close. I really wanted to talk to you about the restraining order motions, and we've seen an increase of those recently. They haven't really been used before. And you did mention them before as well when you were talking about the unconstitutional act passed through the Senate.
Yeah.
Maybe we can invite you on again soon, and we can talk about that.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Well, thanks for dropping by, and thanks for coming in at short notice. And see you soon.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. We will see you next week for the 4th edition. Just like to quickly thank all the guests and all the people listening at home. See you in the server. Enjoy your week.